Welcome, dear aspirants, to this Rungta IAS Academy Explainer. Today, we are breaking down a highly critical topic for your General Studies Paper 2 governance syllabus. We're looking at the classic administrative debate, regulation versus prohibition in digital gaming.
Hello, students. I'm host B, and along with host A, we're going to unpack this completely so you have exactly what you need to write a stellar mains answer.
Now, here is the fundamental question you have to ask yourselves. As future administrators, you can't just look at a policy on paper, right? You've got to look at its reality on the ground. When evaluating paternalistic bans, think about this. Does banning a digital problem actually solve it, or does it merely push it into the shadows? Keep that analytical lens active as we go through today's case study.
To navigate all of this, here is our discussion map for today's explainer. First, we'll cover the PROG Act for GS2. Second, the failure of blanket bans. Third, we'll look at the unintended national security threats. And finally, the way forward through smart regulation. This structure is exactly how you want to build a high-scoring answer. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, GS2, the PROG Act.
The core of our discussion today revolves around the Promotion and Regulation of Online Gaming, or the PROG Act of 2025. Now, on the surface, the governance objective here is entirely well-intentioned. It was passed to protect individuals, especially our youth and vulnerable populations, from the adverse social, economic, and psychological impacts of online real money games. The state acted with a very clear intent to protect its citizens.
However, in public administration, intent is only half the battle. We have to evaluate the implementation. That brings us to Section 2, the failure of blanket bans.
The stark reality of this policy is captured perfectly by this CUTS international data. Look at these numbers, aspirants. After the PROG Act was implemented, users didn't stop playing. They simply bypassed regulated domestic websites and jumped straight to illegal offshore platforms. In Delhi NCR, usage jumped from 68.3% to 82%. Tamil Nadu, a rise from 67.8% to 83%. And Maharashtra, a massive leap from 66.7% to almost 92%. The ban didn't stop the behavior, it literally just shifted it to unregulated spaces.
Exactly. And I really want you to note this specific figure for Tamil Nadu, a 15.2 percentage point net behavioral shift toward offshore platforms. Because digital gaming products aren't physical, users can incredibly easily just fire up a VPN or use private links to completely bypass the ban. Blanket bans rarely change consumer behavior when digital workarounds are this easy. It actually just makes consumer protection much, much harder.
Which leads us to a far more dangerous consequence. Let's look at Section 3, unintended national security threats.
As a future DM or SP, these are the critical governance failures that will be landing right on your desk. These offshore platforms completely circumvent our domestic laws. Worse, they quickly become active channels for money laundering and terror financing. The illegal operators are using advanced evasion tactics like proxy servers, VPNs, and encrypted chats on WhatsApp and Telegram. In the recent budget session, MITI reported blocking 8,376 URLs. But despite this massive effort, offshore platforms remain a huge threat because operators just spin up mirror sites instantly, operating totally beyond our domestic reach.
Spot on. And I want all of you to write down this excellent interstate racket case study. Use this in your answers. In February 2025, a massive fraud racket came to light in Tamil Nadu. A fake old coin purchase task on Telegram lured victims in. The accused procured mule accounts by tricking innocent villagers in Shivaganga, Paramakudi, and Kalayarkaville to open bank accounts for small payments. These accounts were then used to funnel the proceeds of crime. Fluently citing authentic local examples like Shivaganga and Paramakudi will absolutely show incredible depth to your interview panel.
It's a perfect example of why driving an industry underground can completely backfire. So how do we solve this administratively? Let's move to Section 4, Way Forward, Smart Regulation.
And this brilliantly illustrates how international jurisdictions are handling this exact same offshore menace. Look at the UAE model. Despite a long-standing prohibition, in 2023 they established a tightly controlled federal licensing framework with strict compliance and safeguards. Sri Lanka is doing something similar. They're setting up a centralized gambling regulatory authority, expected by June 2026. The real policy choice here is rarely between permitting and banning. It's between creating a regulated domestic framework or just allowing offshore operators to run wild beyond our control.
So, the main takeaway here is that testing a regulated framework offers immense administrative benefits over a blanket ban. It brings things into the light. It ensures accountability, proper grievance redressal, and crucially, it generates tax revenue from a regulated ecosystem. Those funds can then be reinvested directly back into enforcement and player awareness campaigns. Of course, pulling this off effectively requires sustained, ongoing coordination between the center and state governments.
Well said. To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you all with a mock UPSC interview question to practice. As a future administrator, how would you balance consumer protection with tax generation in the digital gaming sector? Think about the hard evidence we discussed today. Formulate a balanced, objective answer, and keep studying hard. Thank you for joining us here at Rungta IAS Academy, and we'll see you in the next one.